Okay. All right. So thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Simone Stewart, and I am the career coach and industry consultant here at the University of Tennessee in the Center for Career Development and Academic Exploration. A lot to say. Today we are joined by a special guest who is Phil Bedford, and I will give him a second and let him introduce himself. So, Phil, tell us who you are.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Simone, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Yes, I'm Phil Bedford. I am a Director of Talent Acquisition for Jeffco Public Schools in Golden, Colorado. I am a University of Tennessee alum, 1985 graduate, and majored in education and became a teacher shortly thereafter, and have spent 34 years in public education.
Awesome. We are so excited to have you here and definitely excited to hear about your career journey and all of the awesome things that you've done to kind of get where you are. Because we do have a lot of students who have a lot of interest in becoming teachers. So we thought that it'd be very important to bring you on because you're a person that students can very much identify with. So with that, you already mentioned that you was a student athlete here who's led our track team to victory more times than one. So, can you tell us a little bit about your career path and kind of what led you where you are right now?
Absolutely, and a great question. So, after I was at the University of Tennessee and had a wonderful track and field and cross country career with the volunteers, I spent a little bit of time working in business and locally in East Tennessee for about a year and a half. But I just had this calling that I needed to become a teacher, and I went to UT to become a teacher. And so at that point in time, the job market was pretty tight in Tennessee, and I wasn't able to go back to my home state of Michigan because there were no jobs at that time. And so I decided to venture out, and I ended up accepting a teaching position in Arizona, where I taught for several years before then moving back to my home state of Michigan to become a school administrator. So I have kind of done the full gamut in education. Started as a 7th grade science teacher, became a high school science teacher. Several years later, became a school administrator, was an assistant principal, athletic director, high school principal, district athletic director. I, for about 6 years, was a curriculum coordinator, and then I started working in human resources and done that in 4 different districts, and came to Jeffco Public Schools specifically for this work in talent acquisition, which is a segment of human resources that happens to be the best part of human resources, and that is the ability to go out and hire high quality teachers for our schools. And I'm very passionate about this profession because it is my profession. I'm not just in human resources. As a human resources professional, I'm truly an educator at heart.
Awesome. That is quite the journey. I mean, I knew some of this stuff, but I'm just in awe right now. I think that's pretty awesome. So for students who are listening, this is definitely an example to let you know that where you start isn't always where you end up. So, but one of those things to kind of starting and ending up takes some skill sometimes to just kind of get there. So when you're out seeking talent for teachers and when you were starting out as a new teacher, what would you say some of the skills that one would need to possess in order to be a successful educator?
Yeah, that's another fantastic question. So I would even take the question in a little different direction. And yes, there are skills, some hard skills that every teacher needs to have.
Mhm.
But even aside from those hard skills, it's really more of an attitude. I truly believe that teaching is a calling. It's not just a job. It's not just a career. It truly is a calling. And you have to have a passion for what you do. And I tell new teachers this all the time. You have to have a passion for this work, and you have to have compassion for the students that we serve. And so it's more than a skill, it's really a personality trait. As far as skills go, certainly all the foundational pieces that you're taught at the University of Tennessee with regards to best instructional practices, student engagement, um, really understanding the learning theory. And it's just not us as educators disseminating information, it's truly bridging that gap for student engagement so that we know that they're learning at the end of the process. So the skills are mostly around best instructional practices and how you're engaging students in their learning and getting them engaged to the point where they own their learning in the process. So that's probably the top skill. Obviously, there's some other basic skills with regards to classroom management, some foundational skills with regards to some of the technology pieces, but all of those really are encompassed in learning best instructional practices so that you're engaging students for the best and most positive learning environment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, yeah, so that's a lot of really good information. And I think you're right on the money when it comes to passion and compassion. It says a lot. And those are things that you cannot fake in a job interview. You either possess it or you don't. And with that, we do have some students who are not necessarily currently in an education program, but maybe thinking about an education program. So, what are some tips that you would give those students in terms of what it's like to transition in some ways that they can enrich their experience on campus so that they can kind of transition easily into teaching? Is it tutoring or is it, camp counseling or, kind of what things would you suggest?
Absolutely. So building your repertoire to become an educator involves, it's not just being a student at the College of Education, it's all the other things that you do as well. And if you really love working with kids and children, that you're spending time as maybe a camp counselor in the summer, maybe you tutor students after school, maybe you're volunteering in a civic organization, maybe you're teaching a Sunday school class, anything Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, working at the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, any of those places where you can build on your skills in working with kids is vitally important. So even if you may not have chosen education as a profession, if you've enjoyed those types of activities, that's all preparation for this career in education. So it's really important to be able to do those things in building your repertoire of skills and abilities. I think it's really important, though, that as you're looking into education, that it is the right place for you. Please don't go into education if the only reason you go into education is you get the summers off, or you get 2 weeks at Christmas, or you get a spring break, and all of those kinds of things, because in reality, you don't. If you're truly doing this work the way it's supposed to be done, you're probably taking professional development all summer. Maybe you're taking grad classes towards your master's degree or doctorate. You do get breaks, and there is a work-life balance that we all expect. But it isn't a 9 month of the year job like it was maybe years ago. There's much more to it now. And so don't think that, I want to be a teacher so that I only have to work 9 months of the year or 185 days or whatever most teaching contracts are, because it goes well beyond the 185 days. And it truly is a calling.
Yeah, absolutely. That was such a rich response. Because, I already talked about just kind of some of the challenges and some of the non-traditional paths that led to teaching. So you already kind of touched on some of the non-traditional experiences that we think of that can help students with skill acquisition when it comes to transitioning into teaching. So what about maybe some majors that people don't typically think about when it comes to people who may want to work in the teaching aspect? What majors do you think are desirable?
Absolutely. So in education right now, and I can tell you specifically in Colorado, and I think it's happening across the country, even though you decide to go in one major or another, you can always transition into education. Even here in Colorado, you can get a degree, a liberal arts degree, let's say, in biology or English or any other content area, and you can actually take an alternative licensure pathway to become a teacher. So there's more avenues, there's more options, there's alternative ways to become teachers. So even though you may be in the pathway right now, maybe a pre-med degree, maybe a pre-law degree, maybe you're in agriculture at UT, there's all kinds of opportunities to then, even when you finish your program, to then go back. And University of Tennessee has an amazing program now where you actually go through your entire bachelor's degree and then you go into the master's program for your teaching licensing, which only makes a better teacher. It really does. And I'm so proud that they've gone that route, because the teachers I've been able to hire over the years are ones who have had more than just 4 years of preparation, because that final year or more in that master's program at UT is really the capstone, and really is what makes you a great teacher. So you can select and you can go down that pathway. I started at the University of Tennessee in the fall of 1980, and I was a business administration major until I found my way and became an educator. And that was really where my passion was to begin with. I probably could have stayed the business administration route and then taught business in school, but it's a matter of making the right turn at the right time to enter the profession. But again, most important piece is, if this is your calling and this is your passion, you can make that turn, you can make that decision at whatever point in time in your career at the University of Tennessee, which I would strongly advise, obviously talking with your career services professionals, but also all of your advisors at the College of Education over in the Claxton building.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are curious about our teacher education program, I definitely would suggest that you meet with an academic advisor, find out more information about the program and how you can prepare to hopefully be accepted into the program. So, Phil, you answered a question a little bit earlier, and you kind of alluded to the 9 months and how the teaching profession has changed. So, for the elephant in the room that I'm sure everyone wants to know, how has the hiring needs changed or teaching positions changed in the last 12 months due to recent national and international events?
Well, it has changed in some ways for the good, other ways it's more of a challenge.
Okay.
We have a need across the United States for great teachers. When we first entered the COVID environment, parents soon realized that they didn't want to be their child's teacher. And there were all kinds of kudos for teachers and praise for teachers. I think the longer we've been in the COVID environment, it's become more of a challenge for our teachers because of the engagement difficulties across the virtual environment. I think that the complexities in society with social injustice pieces and the turmoil that we've been in during this COVID environment hasn't helped. But what it has done is it has caused people to realize the importance of what we do. Unfortunately, there's some negative connotations in this environment because there are some teachers who haven't stepped up, haven't accepted the challenge, haven't done the work that we need to have done for our children, but a majority have. And it is a tough environment. I was talking with a gentleman the other day who is a student teaching coordinator, and he put it in these words. He said, in this environment, teachers have to work at least 20% harder. And that is so true. Even though there are certain things that have fallen off your plates in the way of responsibilities in the virtual environment, there's so much more planning and there's so much more work that has to be done on the backside of using technology to engage students and follow up and follow through. The unfortunate part is we've seen many students fall between the cracks in this virtual environment because they haven't had access to technology, or they haven't had accountability at home when mom and dad do still have to go to work, but kids are still at home. And so there are some accountability pieces that we're struggling with. Unfortunately, there's an element of our population, a number of our kids who are being lost in this environment because they don't have to be physically present in a space, in a school building where they can be held more accountable. So it has been a huge challenge. I think that we as a profession are going to gain from this environment because I think there's a greater appreciation for what we do. And it's not just that we house kids in buildings during the school day so parents can go to work. It's what we provide them in our schools in the way of providing them with quality education. And I think one of the biggest downfalls of this environment too is the socialization pieces. And speaking about the social emotional health of our kids, when many of them are isolated at home and can't go anywhere or do anything or build those social skills, that they need so much. As we all know, looking back on our lives as adolescents, that the social aspect was very important. We have in our district, we have what we're calling red shirt kindergartners that are coming in next fall, who were held out of kindergarten this year by their parents, and we have thousands of them that have been waiting to go to school. And our wonder is, what is a 6-year-old in kindergarten compared to that 4.5 or 5-year-old in kindergarten, and how are they going to be connecting together socially and learning those social skills that they need? Are the 6-year-olds that much further behind, or are they not? How is this all going to work when we have students back in our schools? We've been fortunate here in Colorado that we have most of our elementary students back almost to 100%. Our secondary students are working on a hybrid model and coming in half of the week essentially. We are seeing lower cases of COVID, which is wonderful. So more of our students are coming back. But with that, we're now transitioning to have to deal with some of those social isolation issues and those social emotional issues and playing catch up in many of the academic areas. So it's been a huge challenge, but I believe our teachers understand the call and that they are working really hard to make this all work. And even if we have students behind, we're going to work to get them caught up. And it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of hard work. But I believe we can do it, and we have to. I mean, that's what we're here for. Teachers, out of everyone that works in public education, are the most student-centered of all of us. And as long as we continue to keep students at the center of everything we do in education, and they're our focal point, they're our purpose, they're our why as to what we do, then we're going to be okay. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough and continues to be tough, but we'll be okay.
Absolutely. Well, Phil, I want to thank you so much for taking out the time. And I also want to thank you for everything that you're doing to keep our kids engaged in your area and our kids at large. It definitely, I mean, it's one of those things, it's quite thankless. And no matter how much we say thank you, it still hits just a little bit different in different places. So we really appreciate you all and your service to our community. So you're making, your appearance at our upcoming education job fair on March 3rd, which will be 100% online for Handshake. And so it's definitely going to be our first virtual fair for teacher education. So we look forward to having you there. But in the meantime, until students can get to you then, where can students find you to learn more about what you have to offer in your school district?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I open the invitation to any Tennessee volunteers who want to contact me directly, and they may do so by emailing me at phil.bedford@jeffco.k12.co.us. And you are more than welcome to contact me via phone at 720-454-2116, and that is my cell number. And if I don't pick up or answer, I will get back in touch with you. But I have a special affinity for all Tennessee volunteers. My blood bleeds orange, just like all of yours. And we help each other out there. And regardless of whether you want to come to Colorado or not, I will help you in your career choice process and provide you the best advice I can give you and do everything I can to help you. So you don't have to feel like there's any sort of a hook to come to Colorado or Jeffco Public Schools. Just know that as a fellow Tennessee volunteer, I'm here to help support you and everything you do.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate you for joining us today. Yeah, is there anything else you want to add before we close this out?
I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone at UT. And again, I'm proud to be a Tennessee volunteer and always will be. And just let me know how I can help. That's what I'm here for. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we will be seeing Phil also on next Friday, February 19th, for resume reviews. So from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, if you would like to join us for a resume review, we're doing drop-in hours through Handshake. So definitely visit Handshake, RSVP. We'd be happy for you to join us. You kind of get a chance to meet Phil, ask him about his career and all of those things, and get your resume reviewed at the same time. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you at the fair on March the 4th.